Welcome. Tonight, we will wander quietly into the world of ancient China, a land of rivers and mountains, of farmers, poets, artisans, and rulers. For thousands of years, life along the valleys of the Yellow River and the Yangtze unfolded in steady rhythms, planting, harvesting, weaving, writing, living in harmony with family, community, and tradition. It is easy to think of China through dynasties, emperors, and grand inventions. But beneath those towering names and accomplishments, there were countless days lived by ordinary people. Days shaped by work in the fields, by meals shared with family, by rituals honoring ancestors, and by the quiet turning of the seasons. So tonight, instead of battles and politics, we will explore the gentle flow of daily life. Imagine yourself on a quiet morning, walking through the countryside of ancient China, where mist hangs low over the rice fields, and the sound of wooden wheels creaks softly in the distance. Settle in, breathe slowly, and let us drift together into this ancient rhythm. The sun rises pale over the horizon, its light filtered through a thin veil of morning mist. From the riverbank, you can hear the splash of oars as fishermen push their wooden boats into the water, nets coiled at their feet. Their voices are low, calm against the lapping of the current in the nearby fields. Farmers bend to their work, their feet sink into the soft mud of the rice paddies. Cool water glistening around the green shoots of young plants. The air smells of damp earth, of water carried fresh from canals, of grass cut and laid to dry. Some fields grow millet or wheat, the grain that will be ground into flour for noodles and steamed buns. Others are dotted with rows of vegetables, cabbage, garlic, beans. The sound of tools is steady and rhythmic. Wooden handles striking soil, sickles slicing stalks. The village nearby is modest, its houses built of wood and packed earth, with roofs thatched from reeds. Smoke curls upward from stoves, where women stir pots of millet porridge, adding greens or scraps of dried meat for flavor. Children play in the dust of the lane, their laughter carrying as they chase one another with sticks and hoops. Daily life follows the seasons. Spring brings planting. Summer brings long hours of tending fields. Autumn brings harvest, and winter brings rest. A time for mending clothes, repairing tools, and telling stories by the hearth. Inside homes, light filters through paper windows. Families gather on mats, sharing bowls of rice or steaming dumplings. The taste is simple, yet nourishing. A reminder that the land itself sustains life. In the evenings, after the work is done, villagers sit outside their doors, fanning themselves in the warm air. The hum of insects rises. The sound of a bamboo flute drifts softly from somewhere nearby. Children grow drowsy, heads leaning against their mother's shoulders. Above, the stars shimmer faintly, and the Milky Way stretches like a river of light across the sky. This is ancient China at its most ordinary, and yet its most enduring. The quiet persistence of people, the steady labor of hands, the shared breath of family and earth. Among the farmers and artisans of ancient China, there was another figure whose days followed a very different rhythm: the scholar. Imagine a young boy born into a modest family, but with a quick mind and an eagerness to learn. His father sees potential in him, and so he is sent to study with a village teacher. There, under the shade of a tree or in the quiet of a small hall, He learns to hold the brush, to grind the ink, and to form the characters that carry meaning across time. At first, his strokes are clumsy, his brush trembling, ink pooling too dark in one corner, too faint in another. But slowly, through repetition, he learns balance and flow. Each character is not only a sound, but an image, a piece of history,
Act.
a bridge between thought and memory. The boy grows, and his days become filled with study. He memorizes the Analects of Confucius, your lines spoken centuries before, yet still guiding families, villages, and rulers. He copies the texts carefully, his hands steady, his mind absorbing wisdom. That harmony is the root of order. That respect for family is respect for all. In time he becomes a man, and the path of the scholar stretches before him. If he succeeds in his studies, he may take the imperial examinations. These are not easy. They demand long essays, careful arguments enough to summon entire classics. The exams may last for days, candles flickering as rows of men bend over their desks, the silence broken only by the scratch of brushes on paper. Few pass, but those who do may serve in the emperor's administration, for in China, knowledge is power, not through wealth or weapons, but through the ability to write, to reason, to guide. Imagine our scholar now as an older man. He wears a simple robe, his beard streaked with gray, his fingers stained faintly with ink. He walks slowly through a courtyard lined with bamboo. Students gathered around him. They ask questions. They read aloud. They bow in respect. For him, the rhythm of life has not been in fields or markets, but in words, ideas, and the passing of knowledge. At home, his family honors him. On the household altar, incense burns before the tablets of ancestors, a reminder that he, too, will one day join that lineage. His legacy will not be in stone or bronze, but in the memories of students, in the words he has copied, in the wisdom carried forward. Through this scholar's life, you glimpse another side of ancient China, not the toil of fields, but the quiet labor of the mind. Both were needed. Both sustained the empire, the hand that planted grain, and the hand that shaped words. When we turn from stories to the earth itself, the archaeology of ancient China offers us quiet traces of how life was lived. Not only the palaces of emperors, but the bowls, the tools, and the writings of ordinary people. In the valley of the Yellow River, archaeologists have uncovered villages buried beneath layers of soil. Their houses of packed earth reveal their outlines. Rectangular rooms, hearths in the center, and storage pits dug deep into the ground. Fragments of pottery lie scattered, red clay decorated with simple black designs. Patterns of spirals and waves that once held meaning for the hands that painted them. In tombs, too, daily life has been preserved. Not only treasures of jade and bronze, but humble items. Wooden combs, woven shoes, small clay models of pigs, dogs, or chickens. These were placed with the dead not as decoration, but as companions for the afterlife. The belief was simple yet profound, that the rhythms of daily life, food, animals, tools, would continue in the world beyond. In later dynasties, the terracotta figurines become more detailed. Rows of soldiers, but also musicians, dancers, and servants. The afterlife was not imagined as distant and abstract, but as a reflection of the living world. continuation of what was familiar and necessary. Archaeologists also find oracle bones, scapulae of oxen or shells of turtles, inscribed with the earliest Chinese characters. Cracks burned into them were read as messages from ancestors, guiding rulers in questions of harvest, weather, or war. To hold one now is to glimpse both mystery and memory. A piece of bone that once spoke with the voice of the divine. Ritual vessels of bronze tell another story. Heavy, ornate, cast with designs of dragons and spirals, they were used in ceremonies honoring ancestors. Wine and food were offered, smoke rising into the air as a bridge between worlds. These ceremonies remind us that the family was not only the living, but also the dead. Present at every meal, guiding every choice, and yet, alongside these solemn objects, archaeologists uncover toys. Small whistles shaped like birds, spinning tops, tiny figurines that children once carried in their hands. They speak of laughter echoing across courtyards, of simple joys carried forward across millennia. Imagine yourself walking through a museum of ancient China. Cases hold bronze vessels, delicate jade ornaments, and silk preserved in fragments. But more than their beauty, what strikes you is their humanity. The comb that once touched someone's hair, the bowl that once held a family's meal, the toy that once belonged to a child. All whispers of lives both ordinary and enduring. The mystery of ancient China lies not only in its grandeur, but in these quiet remains. They remind us that history is not only written in battles and rulers, but in the smallest gestures of daily life. Gestures that still echo softly across time. Inside ancient China, life unfolded in layers. The rhythm of existence was shared by all. But the burdens and privileges were divided by place and station. At the very top stood the emperor. To his people, he was not only a ruler, but the Son of Heaven, the one through whom the harmony of the cosmos was maintained. His life was filled with ritual. Each morning he was attended by officials. His robes of silk heavy with embroidered dragons, his meals prepared with rare delicacies, pork, duck, fresh fruit, and fragrant teas. He did not work the land, but his role was symbolic. He prayed for rain at altars, performed sacrifices at temples, presided over ceremonies that bound the heavens to the earth. Below him stood the nobles and officials. Their homes were large, with tiled roofs and courtyards shaded by bamboo. Servants tended to their needs. Tutors taught their children to write, to recite poetry, to play the qin. These families lived in comfort, surrounded by books, scrolls, and carved ornaments. Yet their security was tied always to imperial favor. The scholars formed another class, not defined by wealth, but by knowledge. Through study and examination, they might rise to positions of authority. Their lives were quieter, filled with ink and thought, yet they shaped the governance of the realm as surely as soldiers shaped its borders. Merchants, though often wealthy, were sometimes regarded with suspicion. They dealt in trade, carrying silk, salt, and tea across mountains and rivers. Their lives were filled with movement, with bargaining in markets, with journeys through distant provinces. Their wealth might rival that of officials, yet their status in society was lower, for profit was seen as less noble than planting, ruling, or studying. The artisans held an honored place, where hand-shaped bronze and jade, silk and lacquer, pottery and paintings. Their work brought beauty and utility alike. and many spent their lives perfecting a single craft. The rhythm of hammer against metal, the brush against silk, was their daily song. For the farmers, who made up the vast majority, life was hardest. They rose before dawn, worked until dusk, their meals plain. Millet, vegetables, a little fish, if fortune allowed. Their clothing simple, yet their labor fed the empire. And without them, number emperor, no scholar, no merchant could endure. And beneath them all, there were those whose names rarely appear in records, the enslaved. Now, those taken as captives or born into servitude. Their days were filled with the heaviest tasks, hauling water, building walls, tending the households of the powerful. History seldom remembers them, yet they bore part of the weight of the empire's survival. Still, in festivals, all these divisions softened. Villages and cities came alive with lanterns and drums. The scholar might recite poetry. The farmer might share wine. The noble might watch a dance performed by commoners. Together, they honored ancestors, welcomed the new year, and gave thanks for the harvest. Thus, ancient China was a world of contrasts. Palaces beside fields, silk beside rough linen, luxury beside labor, and yet beneath it all, the same rhythms endured. Family meals, rituals of respect, and the quiet hope that harmony would last another day. As the night deepens over the fields and rivers of ancient China, it is worth pausing to reflect on what gave this civilization its strength. Not only armies, not only rulers, but the quiet search for harmony. For the Chinese, harmony was not just peace between people, but balance between earth and sky, between ancestors and descendants, between the changing of seasons and the steady pulse of daily life. This idea Tao, the way, guided not only philosophers in their writings, but farmers in their fields, families at their tables, and artisans at their workbenches. Time was seen not as a straight line, but as a circle, the rising and setting of the sun, the planting and harvest, the waxing and waning of the moon. All were reminders that endings were beginnings, that what passed would return. Imagine yourself now standing at the edge of a rice paddy at dusk. The water reflects the colors of the sky, soft gold fading into deep blue. Frogs croak. The last birds wheel overhead. And in the distance, a farmer leads his ox home, the day's labor behind him. In the village, lamps are being lit one by one, their glow spilling warm against wooden doors. Families gather, voices soft, bowls passed from hand to hand. It is a simple scene, yet it holds the essence of life. Even in the grand palaces, beneath carved beams and painted dragons, the same truth prevailed. An emperor, for all his power, still relied on the labor of the farmer. The counsel of the scholar, the rituals of the priest, and the flow of the seasons beyond these daily tasks. There was always the presence of ancestors. At shrines both great and humble, incense smoke curled into the air, a thread binding the living to the dead. To remember one's ancestors was to ensure continuity, to carry their strength forward, and to prepare to join them when one's own time ended. Through this web of balance, between rich and poor, between present and past, between life and the promise of continuity, ancient China endured.
Dynasties rose and fell,
but the rhythm of family, field, and ritual carried on, like the steady flow of the great rivers themselves. And so when we think of life in ancient China, it is not only temples or armies or emperors we recall, but this deeper sense of connection. This belief that each moment, however small, was part of something vast, timeless, and enduring. And now, our journey through ancient China draws to a close. We have walked among its villages, listened to the rhythm of farmers in the fields, watched scholars bend over scrolls, traced the silent remains of pottery, bronze, and jade. We have seen emperors preside in their halls, families gather around humble meals. Through all of it, we have felt the steady pulse of a civilization, guided by harmony, tradition, and the endless flow of time. Imagine the night settling softly over the land. The rice paddies glistened faintly in the starlight. The rivers moved quietly through the dark, carrying both memory and renewal. In villages, the last lamps are extinguished, and the hum of voices fades into silence. Even in the grandest palace, candles burn low, casting long shadows against carved beams. The empire rests, its countless lives joined together in the stillness of sleep. As you listen now, let that stillness become your own. Your breath slows, like the flow of a gentle river. Your thoughts soften, like clouds drifting across the moon. The weight of the day slips away, and all that remains is calm. Ancient China has endured for millennia, through change and continuity alike, reminds us that life is both fleeting and eternal, that each day, however ordinary, is a thread in a larger tapestry, woven across generations. Let that thought bring you comfort. You are part of the same rhythm, part of the same continuity. As the ancients rested after their labors, so too may you now rest after yours. The fields are quiet, the ancestors are honored. The stars watch silently overhead, and the world drifts gently into sleep. Good night.